Good evening and welcome to the News Roundup for Thursday, January 12, 2023. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, Clarendon farmer charged with murder following January 9 incident. Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation allocates $40 million to repair roads in southern St. James. 15-year-old girl now in custody as prime suspect in abduction of 3-month-old baby. Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs says the government will move forward with a referendum on constitutional reform even without the support of the opposition. Decomposed body of woman found along Dyke Road in Portmore, St. Catherine. In business, motorists pay less for gas on the pumps today. In the region, World Bank provides more than $40 million to support strengthening Caribbean healthcare systems. On the international scene, Ebola outbreak in Uganda comes to an end. And in sports, Jamaica's Sunshine Girls trail England 1-0 in 3-test series.
Teach them! Always make sure the message reach them!
Now for the news in detail. The decomposed body of a woman was found in bushes along Dyke Road in Portmore, St. Catherine Wednesday evening. The discovery was made shortly before 7 p.m. The roadway was cordoned off by the police as investigators processed the scene. Investigations are ongoing and we will provide more details in subsequent newscasts. An alleged chain grabber was shot and injured in the vicinity of the Halfway Tree Transport Center in St. Andrew on Wednesday. Reports are that the alleged thief grabbed the chain of a man walking in the area. The man, who is said to be a licensed firearm holder, reportedly chased the alleged chain grabber and shot him. The suspect was later accosted by the police, who were posted in the area. A 36-year-old farmer, Omar Willis, otherwise called Dippy, of Park Hall, Clarendon, has been charged with murder following an incident in his community on Monday, January 9. Willis is charged with the murder of 47-year-old Givanoy Parkinson, otherwise called Orain, of the same community. Reports from the Mapen police are that about 2:30 a.m., Parkinson was at home with relatives when he heard a noise outside his home and went to investigate. A few minutes later, his relatives heard him crying for help and shouting Willis's name. Parkinson was seen suffering from chop wounds to the head and upper body. The police were summoned and Parkinson was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead. Willis was later arrested and he confessed to the crime and was charged. His court date is being finalized. Several relatives of an 82-year-old man who was found dead with his throat slashed have been questioned by police in connection with his killing. Stanford Baker, otherwise called Fudd, a farmer of Mount Plymouth in Leeds, St. Elizabeth, was found dead at his home by family members last Thursday. It was alleged that the elderly farmer might have been killed for money, as a few days earlier he had sold several animals. It was also alleged that he had more than $30,000 on him when he was killed and that money could not be found. These allegations, however, have not been confirmed by the police. Police reports say relatives last saw the elderly farmer about 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 9. Having not seen him the following morning, they went in search of him around 9:30 a.m. He was reportedly discovered locked in a shed in his yard. The shed was forced open and the body was seen in a pool of blood. The police were summoned and during the processing of the scene, it was discovered that his throat was cut. The body was later removed and an investigation launched. The legal team representing Andre Ruddock, who is accused of killing Tanika Gardner at Pathways International Kingdom Restoration Ministries in Montego Bay, St. James in 2021, is to make a bail application on April 24. When the matter was called up in the Home Circuit Court on Wednesday, Ruddock's attorney, Anthony Williams, informed the court that he intends to make an application. A plea and case management hearing is scheduled for April 24. Ms. Gardner was reportedly killed on October 17, 2021, during an alleged sacrificial ritual. The woman and a man identified as Michael Brown were found dead on the compound of Pathways International Ministries. Her throat had been slashed. The Jamaica Association of Social Workers, JASW, is calling for mandatory background checks for locals and foreigners who intend to have direct interactions with vulnerable groups, including children. This amid the current scandal gripping the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA. The Office of the Children's Advocate, OCA, has released an explosive report knocking the CPFSA head, Rosalie Gage-Gray, after several wards were exposed to an American donor who was punished for indecent involvement with a minor. In a media release on Wednesday, the Association of Social Workers said its first concern was for the children and young persons whose violation was an antecedent for the report. The association said it hopes that the relevant authorities ensured that they were provided with the support services needed to help them recover from the experience and move on to live productive lives. However, the association wants to see systemic changes to prevent a reoccurrence of the breaches outlined in the OCA's report. Among them is mandatory background checks. The association suggested making amendments to the Child Care and Protection Act to allow for Children's Registry to be used as a source of background checks to complement the use of the Sex Offenders Registry. The association is also calling for social workers and others to be held to professional standards. It contends that the government has also not taken interest in the regulation of social workers. In addition, the association called for the CPFSA's internal policies, procedures, and practices to be strengthened to safeguard Jamaica's children. And opposition spokesperson on Labour and Social Security, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, has called for Jamaica's Sexual Offenders Registry to be made public. Her calls comes after the allegations that girls at a Child Protection and Family Services Agency facility may have been exposed to sexually inappropriate contact with the head of American charity Embracing Orphans, Carl Robonsky. The allegations are contained in a report by the Office of the Children's Advocate, OCA, which was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. Dr. Brown-Burke notes making the registry public is important to protecting vulnerable populations. Jamaica's Sex Offenders Registry is private and is managed by the Department of Correctional Services. The registry reportedly contains the names of more than 300 individuals. There have been concerns that making it public could lead to increased incidents of vigilante justice. However, Dr. Brown-Burke says the risk of vigilante justice is increased because of a lack of confidence in the official processes. She believes more public education is needed to reduce the risk of mob attacks on registered sex offenders. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation has allocated approximately $40 million to repair roads in southern St. James. State Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Homer Davis, outlined that work will commence shortly on about 10 roadways across the constituency. The scope of work will include repairing damage resulting from wear and tear over time, patching potholes, as well as cleaning and repairing drains. Some of the roads being prioritized include Moko to Niagara, Springfield to Barnett Bush, Shortwood to Retrieve Bridge, and the Montpelier to Cambridge Road. The road repairs are expected to be completed before the end of the 2022-2023 financial year. A 15-year-old girl who reportedly befriended an 18-year-old mother on the social media platform TikTok is now in custody as the prime suspect in the abduction of a 3-month-old baby on Tuesday in Horizon Park, Spanish Town. The suspected abductor was held some 114 miles away on Wednesday afternoon in Cambridge, St. James. The child, Rashane Malik Hall, remains in state care and is being medically examined. The child's mother, Kenisha Hamilton, had pleaded on Wednesday for her former friend of 4 weeks to return her child safely. The Cambridge police labeled the suspect as a troubled teen who frequently runs away from her home and ended up in the parish of St. Catherine, where she was living at one point. Reports are that the infant was stolen from his mother at Horizon Park in St. Catherine shortly after 5 p.m. on Tuesday. It is further reported that shortly after 11:30 Wednesday morning, a 42-year-old carpenter and his 20-year-old son, who live in a neighboring St. James community to the suspect, saw a photo of the missing child on social media and recalled seeing the teenage girl with a child fitting the description. The men then carried out their own investigation and held on to the teen and took her to the Cambridge police station, where they made a report. When questioned, the accused reportedly told the police that she had recently given birth to the child while in St. Catherine and had just returned home. She finally confessed to the officers that she had stolen the baby on Tuesday. She was taken into police custody and the child was taken to a medical facility for examination. The child's grandfather, Aston Hamilton, says he regained his appetite after news emerged that his only grandchild had been found safe. It is understood that while the 15-year-old was in the custody of the St. James Police, a man turned up at the station claiming that he was the child's father. He reportedly left the premises before the police could accost him. The St. James Police are expected to transfer the suspect to their St. Catherine North counterparts. Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs Marlene Malahoo Ford says the government will move forward with a referendum on constitutional reform even without the support of the opposition. The government and opposition are at odds on how to proceed with Jamaica's transition towards becoming a republic. Minister Malahoo Ford has expressed disappointment that opposition leader Mark Golding has chosen not to name members to a constitutional reform committee being established to guide the process. The opposition leader has been critical of a 6-month delay between the time he wrote to the minister seeking clarity on the government's plans and when she responded to his letter. Mr. Golding says his request for additional information is reasonable. Minister Malahoo Ford says the government is taking on constitutional reform in 3 stages. In the meantime, Minister Malahoo Ford is questioning the opposition leader's stance on the issues regarding the constitutional reform activities. She says it appears PNP President Mark Golding is confusing the role of the government and the opposition. However, in a press conference this morning, the opposition leader reiterated his stance on the matter.
We have no idea, we have not been told, which provisions the government is intending to amend by way of the referendum process. We have asked for them to give us full and transparent disclosure so we know where this committee, from their perspective, is being taken and what is the journey that we are embarking on. We will not proceed without our eyes fully open, with full and transparent disclosure, so that the process can be respectful, collaborative, and productive.
In business news, motorists are paying less for gas on the pumps today. The state-owned oil refinery Petrojam says E1087 moved down by $4.50 to sell for $158.91 per liter, and a liter of E1090 moved down by $4.50 to sell for $162.88. Automotive diesel oil went down by $4.50 to sell for $204.34. Ultra-low sulfur diesel is being sold for $212.26 per liter, following a decrease of $4.50. The price of kerosene went down by $1.91 to sell for $210.04. In the meantime, propane cooking gas went up by $1.06 to sell for $61.99, while butane moved up by $1.06 to sell for $70.08 per liter. Retailers add their markups to the announced price. In the region, the World Bank has provided more than $40 million to support the strengthening of the Caribbean healthcare system and contingency emergency response. Among the beneficiaries are Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The project will help cushion the threats posed by climate change from rising sea levels and the impact of disasters, pandemics, and emergencies. On the international scene, Uganda's latest outbreak of the Ebola virus is over. Health Minister Ruth Aceng says no new cases had been registered in the past 42 days. This outbreak was the first in a decade of the less common Sudan strain, which, unlike the Zaire strain that has caused outbreaks in neighboring Congo in recent years, has no proven vaccine or therapeutics. Uganda had recorded recorded 142 cases, including 56 deaths, since the outbreak was announced in September. Ebola, which can sometimes manifest as a hemorrhagic fever, spreads through contact with the bodily fluids of an infected person or contaminated materials. Plans to test 3 potential vaccines for the Sudan strain will go ahead in Uganda. A World Health Organization representative says global health experts will meet on Thursday to decide on when and how the trials should begin. And in sports news, Jamaica's Sunshine Girls now trail England's Vitality Roses 1-0 in their 3-test series after a 73-62 defeat at Manchester's AO Arena Wednesday evening. The Roses, despite the big disparity in the scoreline, had to come from behind after captain Janelle Fowler led the visitors to a storming 19-13 first-quarter lead. But that gap closed towards the end of the half, with the Jamaicans leading 34-31. The change in momentum saw the Roses take a 49-47 lead in the third quarter. That lead would never be relinquished, and the Roses would pull away in the final 15 minutes to leave the result without doubt in the closing stages. The teams will now move to the Copper Box Arena in London for back-to-back games on January 14 and 15. And that's it for your news roundup for today. I am Abigail Smythe. See you next time.